Imagine a scream that carries no sound. It is a silent internal shattering of the mind, as 500 million young souls lose their primary connection to reality at the exact same moment. We have long debated the impact of technology on the developing brain as if it were a mere lifestyle choice, but we were blind to the biological truth that we weren't just giving children a tool. We were installing a digital nervous system. When you rip a nervous system out of a living organism, the result is not a detox but a catastrophic biological collapse that defies every law of modern psychology. Welcome to the Chronicle of the Age of the Amputation, a study of the global ban on smartphones for everyone under 16 and the horrific medical fallout that followed. This is not a story of a return to a simpler, analog time. It is a descent into a new kind of madness where the silence is louder than any explosion. Welcome to Discovered. The edict was known as the 16 Mandate, a unified draconian move by governments to halt the rise of adolescent depression and cognitive decay by severing the digital lifelines of an entire generation. In a single weekend, devices were confiscated and cell towers were filtered, with the world expecting a return to a 1990s-style utopia of paper, pens, and healthy eye contact. What they got instead was a biological emergency of unprecedented scale, as the modeling clay of the young brain didn't just harden. Under the pressure of sudden withdrawal, it fractured. The first stage of the collapse was neurochemical. As the adolescent brain's reward system tuned to millisecond fast, high-frequency spikes entered a state of dopamine bankruptcy. This was not mere boredom but a clinical withdrawal more severe than that of class narcotics, leading to a condition now known as digital sepsis. Pediatric wards were suddenly overwhelmed by children suffering from tremors, severe nausea, and a complete inability to regulate body temperature as their brains forgot how to maintain homeostasis without an algorithm. By the second week, the pathologies shifted from the physical to the perceptual with the emergence of digital agnosia, where adolescents found the three-dimensional world incomprehensible. Having perceived reality through a 5-inch pane of glass for their entire developmental lives, they suffered a total loss of depth of field in their minds, without a screen to mediate their experiences. They could no longer distinguish between a physical threat and a social one, triggering constant systemic panic. Then came the phantom limb syndrome for the digital self, where teenagers experienced the literal physical sensation of a missing organ in their hands. They reached for empty pockets with thumbs twitching in a rhythmic, ghost-like motion, scrolling through the air and tapping on their own skin until it bled. They were searching for the digital half of their identity that had been surgically removed, wandering their homes as identity ghosts in a state of catatonic mourning. The silence in schools was a feral, suspicious quiet because the executive functions of the brain had been outsourced to devices for so long that they simply failed to develop. Without a calendar app, they forgot their schedules. Without a search engine, they lost the ability to formulate basic questions about the world around them. Even their social signals were broken. Without emojis to bridge the gap, they could no longer decode the subtle nuances of human facial expressions. This led to chronic temporal fragmentation, a state where adolescents became untethered from the sequence of the day, unable to tell if an hour had passed or a century. They would wake in the middle of the night to dress for school or sit staring at blank walls for half a day. Trapped in a temporal void where the now held no meaning without a digital timestamp. By the end of the first month, the silent revolt turned into a nihilistic uprising known as the analog war, a fragmented and brutal conflict driven by dopaminergic hunger, lacking the ability to organize through apps. Groups of teenagers began to scavenge for legacy tech, raiding old warehouses for any device that could provide a flicker of the light they craved. Black markets of the signal emerged, where a working smartphone with a localized connection became more valuable than gold or medicine. 16-year-olds became the new warlords, controlling the only legal access to the digital world, while those younger were forced into a state of tech serfdom for mere minutes of scrolling. The pathologies deepened as environmental agoraphobia took hold, with entire cohorts refusing to leave blacked-out rooms because the physical world was too bright and lacked a mute button. The brain-as clay analogy took a dark, permanent turn as the pathways for deep empathy and complex problem-solving simply withered away into a synaptic pruning of the soul. In countries where schools had gone full analog, the youth didn't revolt but instead regressed into an infantilized state, unable to engage in abstract thought. These teenagers possessed the bodies of adults but the mental architecture of toddlers, sliding back to the last point of analog stability their minds could find. The 16 Mandate was eventually repealed, but the damage was irreversible, leaving behind a cohort marked by an existential tremor that no amount of reconnection could ever fully soothe. They had seen the abyss behind the screen and realized that their self was nothing more than a flickering light that could be extinguished by a government order or a dead battery. The societal cost was a total breakdown of the intergenerational contract, as the youth saw the ban not as an act of love but as biological warfare against their consciousness. Parents were seen as hypocrites and jailers, leading to a permanent site of conflict that destroyed the very foundation of the family unit. This experiment proved that we are no longer purely biological entities but a symbiotic species whose neurochemistry is tied to the iron lungs of the digital world. To turn off the devices is to stop the breathing of the soul, and the modeling clay of our children's minds has been shaped into a form that requires the digital mold to stay upright. The world of paper and pens is gone forever, replaced by empty eyes and twitching thumbs that are waiting for a signal that will never be strong enough to make them feel whole again. The mandate didn't save the children, it merely showed us that the children we knew were already gone, replaced by something that can only survive in the glow of the screen. We are the architects of our own addiction, and the walls of our cage are made of glass, light, and the outsourced memories of a dying generation. The 16 mandate was the final proof that we have moved beyond the point of responsible use into a state of total neurodependence. Our technology is the oxygen of the modern psyche, and the vacuum created by its absence is a space where only madness can grow. We are left looking at a generation that is physically present but neurologically fragmented, a legacy of an experiment that tried to cure a habit by removing a soul. If this descent into the dark reality of our neurodigital dependency has disturbed you, it is because you feel the phantom vibration in your own hand right now. You know that the line between you and the device is blurring every single day, and the horror of the 16 mandate is that it could happen to any of us. We are living in a world of glass mirrors, and the light is starting to fade. To continue uncovering the grim truths and the unsettling scenarios of our age, we invite you to join us here as we explore the shadows. This is Discover the Space for those who are brave enough to look at the reality before the signal finally disappears. Subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to stay informed of the next revelation. Only by understanding the depth of our dependency can we hope to navigate the darkness that is coming for us all. Stay aware, stay skeptical, and for one moment, look away from the screen and ask yourself, who is left when the power goes out? Subscribe now, and watch the shadows with us.